The 4 factors used in self-psychotherapy as per Might of the Thoughts. Practical approaches explored in our monthly Zoom meeting with the guidance of Daniel Cooper.
Self-esteem, subconscious beliefs, where do they come from? How to find neutrality in our thoughts. How to get our psyche to a state of neutral positive equalizedness. What steps can we take for positive change? Is this something that we are affected by in a mild form? Or are we finding we have more chronic thought tendencies, whereby we can't shake old beliefs, patterns of thought? Or do we distort reality through our faulty lenses of perception? In Die Psyche, Billy talks about self-treating, in more milder instances of negative thinking, etc., through positive thinking and diversionary thoughts, imaginings, which can lead us onto more neutral positive tracks by stimulating positive frames of mind and thus positive feelings. In Billy's book, Might of the Thoughts, he delves a little more deeper into the psyche and addresses potential more chronically impaired psyches and treatments that can be considered. Of note, he goes into the 4 fundamental factors involved in self-psychotherapeutic analysis and treatment. Chapter 9, PG. 130 of the German English version. They are: 1. The tracking down of distortions of reality. 2. The recognition of distortions of reality. 3. The creation of a new attitude, conviction, and the experience of it and the living of it. 4. The conscious, neutral positive equalized changing, and new programming of the consciousness, thoughts, feelings, as well as the psyche and subconsciousness. We can all benefit from these simple approaches of self-cognition that can help us identify ingrained negative self-thinking, etc., and lead us to being more often in a neutral positive balanced frame of thinking and feeling, that is to say, having balanced psyches. Even, as Billy states, serious and profound psychical disturbance, which goes beyond the norm of self-therapy which one has yet to deal with, requires, at any rate, expert advice and help in the form of suitable psychotherapy as part of the process, and does not exclude neutral positive equalized thinking, because it contains an enormous might by means of which the feelings can be positively influenced and changed. Paraphrasing here, what Billy goes on to say is that those with chronic psychical problems benefit greatly from working at changing their thinking, as that will change their feelings, and that in itself goes a long way towards self-healing, contrary to the view of current psychological and psychiatric experts, who maintain that the only real, promising alternative for those with chronic cases exclusively necessitate individual psychotherapy. However, one must be careful because in the case of a-stricken psyche, the use of the simpler positive thinking therapy, as talked of in the psyche, can have a detrimental outcome. One might ask, do I distort reality through my ingrained acquired assumptions about myself? And if so, how does one actually track and recognize these distortions of reality? And how does one do this in new programming? Interestingly, Daniel Cooper, a passive member from the Yukon, discovered long before discovering Meyer, a practical method called the Lefko method. This method gives practical self-therapeutic approaches that address and tie in with these 4 fundamental factors listed in the Might of the Thoughts, and helps us realize how we all distort reality to some degree through old acquired patterns of unhelpful self-talk, etc. Through identification and recognition, we can then target and release or change these negativities in our thoughts/feelings/psyches. Meyer emphasizes the importance of self-therapy, which must be consciously carried out using one's own initiative and motivation. A cognitive restructuring is necessary in any case, regardless of whether it is a simple case which can still be cleared up and resolved through a pure, neutral, positive, equalized thinking, or whether it already deals with a more difficult case which requires therapeutic help from outside. Daniel added to these thoughts, In the case of the stricken psyche, one must delve into the problem and understand it in its totality. Not to dwell in it, but to understand it, which can take time. The therapist must be very patient in this regard and be willing to go over it and over it until the person truly understands the problem. Then one can uncover the source of the pain, the distortion of reality, and neutralize it. Covering it up does not address it, nor does it increase understanding or contribute to true neutrality. Only after neutralizing the distortion of reality is it advisable, then, to move into what is mentioned in Psyche. That way there are not two opposing thoughts working against each other. One does not then have to constantly try to affirm that they are not worthless if they see it already as self-evident. Just as one does not have to constantly affirm that 2 plus 2 equals 4 once discovered. One merely discovers that the distortion of reality is untrue and can move on without the thought constantly nagging them anymore. Daniel continues, then in relation to the fourth factor. When one, for example, meditates on the 77 meditations, one can more easily accept them as fact, which then contributes to the strength of the meditation. The new cognition can become a lived experience. If this is something of interest to you, you may like to join us in our monthly FLCA online meetings, as Daniel takes us deeper into the very helpful methodology of the Lefko method. We are also going to be simultaneously focusing our reading on the particular chapter, Chapter 9, page 127, 128, in The Might of the Thoughts. That is a book we've been reading already in our monthly Zoom meetings as an initiative of one of our FIGU friends, Campbell Foster.